Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to our business meeting of the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County. Thank you for joining us tonight. I hope everyone had a safe and happy 4th of July. We have a little business to take care of, and I'll go through that. There are agendas on the hall to the right, just as you leave the door if you'd like to follow along with an agenda. And if you're joining us remotely, you can access an agenda at athens-clarkecounty.com. For those of you who have cell phones or other devices in the chamber, please turn them off or to silent. There'll be 5 opportunities tonight for public input. If you brought handouts and wish to share them with us, please give them to Mr. Berryman. He'll make sure we get them. And those opportunities for public input, the first will be a public hearing on the proposed TSPLOST projects. Second, our consent agenda, which are items 1 through 10. The third, old and new business, items 11 through 17. And what was the last number, 21, Jean, or 19? And 11 through 17 and 19 under the new business. And the fourth opportunity is a public hearing on the Planning Commission's recommendations, which are items 18 through 21. The final opportunity to address the Mayor and Commission is after agenda items are acted on for any item that's not on tonight's agenda, and I'll let you know the appropriate time for each of these time slots. And before we begin tonight's meeting, I would like to share a couple of recognitions our ACC received in the past month. The first one is our Public Information Office received a Gold Hermes Award, Creative Award for the refreshed design of the Athens-Clarke County Commission website in the government website category. The Hermes Creative Award is an international competition for creative professionals involved in the concept, writing, and design of traditional materials and programs and emerging technologies. It's administered by and judged by the Association of Marketing and Communication Professionals. This is the second Gold Hermes Award that the website has won since 2011. And receiving this award tonight will be Jason Harwell, who handles the general administration, design, and training for the website of public information. So, Jason, would you come forward to get this award? This is a beauty, isn't it? Thanks, Jason.
We'll do this.
I always let her have it. Back up here because I have some verbiage to tell y'all about this one. At last week's, you can just hand it to me, Jean. I'll show it. At last week's Georgia Municipal Association, Commissioner Harry Sims and our Economic Development Director, Ryan Moore, accompanied me in accepting this award from the Great Promise Partnership. And it's an award that I'm very proud of because I've been a supporter of this effort from the first year I was mayor when it was first brought to Clarke County. And I think it's one of the most wonderful opportunities out there to help bring young people who are falling behind or having a hard time into the mainstream of our society. Great Partnership is a public-private partnership that empowers and equips at-risk students to complete high school while gaining real-world job skills and experience, creating a path to personal success and the workforce in the future. Engaging with GPP offers Georgia employers an opportunity to address the critical need of recruiting and developing the next generation of workforce talent. The program works with youth that are at risk of not graduating from high school with the promise that if they continue their education, we will support their efforts and help them prepare for further education, military service, or the workforce after graduation. There are currently about 60 ACC students in the program. I hope in a very short time we'll have 600 because I think this is just a awesome opportunity. And I want to tell you a quick little story to make you understand how wonderful it is. I went to one of the graduations of this program after some young people had been in the program, and there was a room full of high-level executives from all over the state that were there, and they had some of the students that had gone through the program that to talk to us about their experience. And these were kids that probably would have had a hard time meeting your eye or shaking your hand before they went through this program. And I was envious of the poise that they had in front of all of these very high-level officials. And they asked them some questions about their experience. And one of the questions that they were all asked was, you know, because they make the same salaries that their counterparts that are adults would make doing the same jobs. They're real jobs. This is not internships or make work. and they're actually productive employees for these companies. And so they ask them what they're going to do with their money. And of course, you get the typical one, was saving for a car and various things like that. And this one young man throws his shoulders back, his chest out, and says, I'm now the provider for my family. And I thought that was one of the most awesome things that I've ever seen, and it really brought home to me the importance of this program. So I hope that you all will encourage people in the community and that our business community will really take it to heart how important this program is for us. And Athens-Clarke County has had one of these young people in our program here in the county last year, and we've provided have several more next year. So, and this is the beautiful award. It says Trailblazer Award, Cornerstone Community, Athens-Clarke County, and we were the top award and the first time they presented these awards. So I was very proud of that. And before our next order of business is our have one.
Roll call.
Yeah, we got to go to a roll call. I'm so excited about what's going on. I forget the official business. Ms. Spratlin, would you call the roll for us, please?
Dickerson.
Here.
Sims.
Here.
Link. Here. Wright.
Present.
Bailey.
Present.
Neesmith.
Present.
Bell.
Here.
Harrod.
Present.
Gertz.
Here.
And Hamby.
Here.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may, Ms. Dickerson.
I would like to make a motion that we reconsider item number 3 on the June 6, 2017 agenda regarding the ordinance updating septic fees.
Thank you. We have a motion, second. I think Mr. Gertz was the second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
We have a no.
I'm a no.
We have 2 noes. Do we need to call the roll, or just we got the 2 noes? Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Bailey and Ms. Wright, yeah. So that will go to the bottom of our agenda, and we will discuss it at the end of our business before we go to the Planning Commission items. So do I have a motion to approve minutes of June 6th, 13th, and 20th, 2017?
Second.
Have a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll begin our meeting tonight with our public hearing on the proposed TSPLOST projects. Our rules of commission allow citizens of each section of our agenda up to 3 minutes, and a timer is on Ms. Spratlin's desk, and will be yelled at 2.5 minutes, so please have your remarks finished before that time. So anyone who would like to comment on the TSPLOST proposed projects, this is the time to come to the podium and let us hear from you.
Good evening. My name is Nat Kirkendall. I live at 108 River Bottom Circle in Athens, and I'm here as the chair of the Oconee Rivers Greenway Commission. And at the risk of being repetitive, I have a few points I'd like to make about the package that we have for the Greenway program in TSPLOST. The North Oconee River Greenway Trail will provide a safe and inviting off-street transportation corridor for pedestrians and cyclists for daily commuting to downtown UGA, and offer also healthy recreational opportunities. The trail will also fulfill the county's Complete Streets commitment along Martin Luther King Boulevard. The trail and the North Oconee Trail and the Firefly Trail are important complementary projects that provide alternative transportation options for East Athens and Clarke County. The NORG Trail is critical as a thread in the web of multi-use trails and street-based routes that are approved for the county. The North Oconee River Greenway Trail will feature the beauty and environmental and cultural importance of Athens rivers. The trail along downtown will be a source of pride for all of our citizens and a major draw for visitors to Athens. Greenway trails have proven to be vital economic assets in communities across the U.S., with estimated returns on investment of 1 to 3 or even greater. ACC has already invested in acquiring the properties for the trail and has constructed disconnected sections of trail segments, and the proposed project will link all those and provide a seamless trail experience running from Sandy Creek Nature Center to East Campus, to College Station Road, to Barnett Shoals Road, or to the Lexington Park and Ride. Ryan Gravel, that's not Gravel, although that would be a good name for him, is the author of the Atlanta Beltline. He calls urban trail projects catalytic infrastructure, meaning that the social, wellness, economic, and environmental benefits of such projects are much greater than the sum of the parts. Urban trails such as the North Oconee River Greenway can stitch communities together when properly planned and managed. The downtown Riverside Trail has been planned for over 20 years and was approved once again in the 2016 updated Greenway Network Plan, as well as recommended by the TSPLOST Citizens Advisory Committee. It's overdue and it's ripe for development. So I appreciate your time today. I do want to recommend to you a book, City on the Verge. This is by Mark Pendergrast and talks about the value of the urban trail system in Atlanta for that community. And I think much of what's in there also stands true for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nat. You brought us all a copy, didn't you?
Yes.
My name is Leslie Sinyard. I live at 710 Millage Circle. And I agree with the worthiness of that project. But before I get there, I know last meeting, I believe a gentleman from Benson's Hospitality Group came expressing disagreement with the TSPLOST tax. And I want to say I am in agreement with him. Lest you think I don't care about bikers and hikers, I have a daughter who bikes to work in Washington, D.C. I don't think there are many bike lanes there. And I have a son who has biked to work for 5 years in Durham. So all 5 of us are runners, we're walkers, we're hikers, and several of us are bikers. So it's not that I don't value trails, bike paths, and all that. But there's a time for those things, and there's a time that you spend money on those things. Those are luxury things that you use leftover monies for. And you figure out how to make the budget so that you can try to have those kind of monies. There are 2 primary things that I believe make a county thrive in the long run. There are families that move in and families that stay, and then there's businesses. And you already know how those work hand in hand. Your families spend money, and your businesses provide goods and services. And that's what makes a county thrive in the long run, is they have to have both of those things. This TSPLOST tax, to go up another % is going to hurt both of those things. We all know that people are already crossing the county line right now to do a lot of their shopping. I honestly try to not buy anything once that business moves to Oconee because I'm trying to keep my tax dollars here. As much as I possibly can. But you've got families, you've got people who are going and spending their money just across the line. You've got businesses who are moving, and then you've got businesses who might come to our county but are going to say, why do we want to come there when people are spending their money in Oconee County for that extra percentage? Furthermore, this tax is going to hurt the underserved people. It's going to be the biggest penalty on them. And if I read correctly, between pedestrian improvements, greenway projects, Firefly Trail, and biking, we're looking at $50 million just for those things. I don't believe they're going to derive the benefit from those things. I might, be great, but I don't believe the people who this tax will hurt the most are going to derive their benefit from that. And as far as the $25 million for road improvements, it used to be I would drive around Athens when there were road improvements and you'd see a sign and it said, your SPLOST dollars at work. We didn't need TSPLOST. Our money from SPLOST dollars was going for a lot of that. And I don't know what happened to all those dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sinyard.
Tyler Dewey, 1075 West Broad Street. I wasn't planning on speaking on TSPLOST tonight. I think we've spoken on it enough, but I just want to put out a reminder that we provide at least 70 adult bikes a year to folks who have no other form of transportation but bicycles. We do probably at least 100 hours of walk-in repairs for folks that we've given bikes to and they need to come back for constant maintenance. We've been working with some gentlemen close to 10 years on keeping sure that their bikes are up and in working order. Frankly, if we were able to stay open more hours with our new location, there's probably 1 or 2 people who come by a day who aren't clients of ours, who haven't received a bike from us, but can't afford to take their bike anywhere else for maintenance. We're the only people who can fix them up and keep them on the road. So yes, bike lanes and sidewalks will benefit people from low-income communities. I wish there was another way to fund it, but certainly at least with using a sales tax, we all chip in, and not only that, people not from Athens chip in. So we get people who are coming from outside the community to help us provide critical infrastructure for those inside the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dewey. Anyone else wish to speak on sales tax?
Lauren Blaze, 255 Oglethorpe Terrace.
So, Laura, I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name.
Lauren Blaze,
Blade.
BLAIS.
Oh, okay.
I've been privileged to serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee for TSPLOST. And while this list that you have before you, it's not my dream list, it is a list that I and the Citizens Advisory Committee can get behind. Now, it is our charge to promote this list and get out the word about the referendum in November. So this is why I ask you, if you are considering making changes, trying to find room for other projects that didn't make the final list, please consider your biggest bucket, which is pavement maintenance. The Citizens Advisory Committee has awarded $25 million, a quarter of the TSPLOST, anticipated TSPLOST budget, for pavement maintenance. And it's mainly because we couldn't give you a bit less. We would have liked to have more room for things like, or maybe I should speak for myself, I would like to have more money for things like the Clayton Street project, which was underfunded from the previous SPLOST, and maybe for the roundabout, which we know is shovel-ready, the South Millage Avenue roundabout. But if you take the money that you want to spend on pavement maintenance, $25 million, and divided that in half, you would still double the total amount that you have been putting towards pavement maintenance last year for the next 5 years. So that includes all the money that you awarded from the general fund, the previous SPLOST, and the block grants, okay? So if you just took the $25 million, divided that in half, you could still feel great about the amount that you're awarding for pavement maintenance. So here's the deal. People don't understand how routine maintenance, like pavement maintenance, is more special than sidewalks, than bikes, bike lanes, than buses, than multi-use paths, which increase connectivity in our community and which we have been badly needing. And I, as a millennial, really, really want. And these are not luxuries. These are not luxury items, by the way. They're necessities. So I'm concerned that this TSPLOST won't be marketable and won't be passable if these things are cut further, because they were already on the list at their reduced amounts. The Greenway came back to us a second time and offered us an alternative project just so they could get something on here. So though TSPLOST is the only item on the November ballot, the world is not the same since last November. And though you don't see a ton of people out here right now, folks are paying attention. And I wouldn't say that they wouldn't be mobilized. So the Citizens Advisory Committee, we're proud of this list. We look forward to promoting it. If you're looking for places to get more money, consider your biggest bucket pavement maintenance. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Blaze, and thank you for the work you've done.
Good evening. Mark Ralston, 190 Pendleton Drive, and president of Firefly Trail Incorporated. I just want to reiterate some of the points that we've heard, but tonight I really want to focus on economic development. Excuse me. Firefly Trail is an economic engine. When complete to Union Point, the trail will generate an estimated $14.7 million in annual economic output. If just half of that output occurs in Athens-Clarke County, The trail will generate $7.35 million a year in economic benefits right here. That's a payback time of less than 3 years. As Mr. Kirkendall mentioned, nationally, a dollar invested in trails generates $3 in economic output. In Atlanta, a $250 million investment of public funds has led to a $1 billion investment in private development around the Beltway. So it can be a huge transformative investment for our community. Trails also improve health and cut healthcare costs. Firefly Trail, with its connections to the Greenway, provides a vital resource for exercise and active transportation. Our region has some of the highest rates in the country of obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart attack, and stroke. And our people, especially in underserved neighborhoods, need safe places that they can get access to easily to get the exercise they need. Studies show that every dollar invested in trails generates almost $3 in direct health benefits. And finally, there is a tremendous unmet need in this community. 80% of Georgians say they would walk or ride if they had a safe place to do so. People want to be healthier, people want to be more environmentally friendly, but they're justifiably afraid of being hit by a motor car if they do it on the road. Having a safe trail for recreation and transportation is an important element of how people choose where to live and work nowadays. When I go to the Silver Comet Trail, I see all these businesses and establishments and neighborhoods that are promoting access to the trail as one of the key drivers for bringing people to their communities. So finally, just to sum up, for all these reasons, we feel Athens-Clarke County really needs the Firefly Trail. We need it sooner than later. It's good to have it on this TSPLOST project, and we hope that you will continue to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ralston. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, and I want to let everybody know that the schedule for the rest of the TSPLOST is there'll be another work session on the final list of projects on July the 11th, a public input on the final list, which will be the Mayor and Commission's list, if any changes are made in it, on July the 18th. And on Tuesday, August 1st, there'll be a vote on the final list of projects for the referendum. And then Tuesday, November the 7th, will be the referendum on the TSPLOST vote. So I just want to let you all know what that schedule was. And thank you for your input on TSPLOST. Now we'll move to our consent agenda. And this is a time for public input on items 1 through 10. If anyone would like to speak to one of those items. Anyone wish to speak to our consent items? Okay, seeing none, we'll come behind the rail. Is there any commissioner who would like to remove anything? Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Have a motion second for the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. This is the next opportunity for citizen input, which is old and new business, which are items 11 through 17, and item number 19 has been added to it. Would anyone like to speak to one of those items?
My name's Jeb Bradbury. I live at 120 Fortson Circle, Athens. Wanted to speak to item number 11, the traffic islands on Baxter Street. I would ask that you take this off of the agenda tonight and table it, and let's talk about it. To my knowledge, other than the one business owner at Homemade, nobody else on the street has been contacted by anybody from the government. The people that I've talked to, I own the business, the Elephant Trunk, directly across the street at 1063 Baxter. Also have Corky Sam, Corky Sam's owns the property at 1063 Baxter. We both own the parking lot with a cross parking agreement jointly, and nobody contacted us about this. So what we'd like for you to do would just be to table it and let's vote on it, put a moratorium on it till next month. And that's all we want to do.
Thank you, Mr. Bradbury. I smile because that word you used. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Davis. I am at 101 Jasmine Trail in Athens, and I'm speaking in strong support of item number 14, the proposed changes to the animal control ordinance. Before I explain why I support these changes, I would like to thank the legislative review for their work on this matter. I appreciate the time and the effort that you've put into helping out our community. I want to specifically address the proposals that animals be microchipped upon reclaim from animal control and spayed or neutered at the time they are reclaimed. To provide some context for these proposals, as well as cost information for the full commission and community, I think these amendments and the other proposed amendments are much needed and represent a huge step forward for the pets and the taxpayers of Athens-Clarke County. The proposed changes are small and designated to reduce taxpayer costs and increase public safety, while imposing at most a small cost to pet owners who do not confine their pets in accordance with existing laws. First, the microchipping is easy, cheap, and permanent way to ensure animals have ID on them at all times. Currently, very few of the animals impounded at our shelter are microchipped or wearing ID when they arrive. And microchip facilitates the quick return of these pets to their home, saving both taxpayers money and owners a cost, and many owners the cost associated with having an animal impounded. This is particularly relevant with 4th of July. Yesterday, we had several animals impounded that likely need to be returned to their homes. If they were microchipped, we could facilitate that much faster by directly contacting the owners. Many reclaiming owners express an interest in having their pets microchipped, so this should really be uncontroversial for the community. And under the proposed ordinance, microchipping would cost less than buying a collar. It would be anywhere from $5 to $10, very minimal cost for that safety. Second, requiring that animals be reclaimed from animal control a second time, be spayed or neutered, is a sensible measure that increases public safety and decreases long-term cost to taxpayers at minimal or no cost to the owner. The public safety issue is that intact animals are more apt to wander as they search for mates. They propose a public safety risk, they cause car and bike accidents, they bite people, and they spread disease. Altering animals whose owners cannot contain them is a way to reduce all of these hazards, as well as reduce the high cost to our community of unintentional pet reproduction. There are no health or business reasons not to take this approach, because of the proposal's exception for commercial breeding ventures and the health of the animal. Moreover, there are no financial reasons not to do it. For the past 2 years, Athens Pets has offered free spays and neuters for any animal reclaimed, and they have guaranteed to continue doing this for the next year. This proposal only affects animals whose owners have shown they cannot comply within the law, and it is the interest of the public generally and taxpayers specifically. I know I'm out of time, and there are several people here that are in support of this, and instead of having everybody get up and repeat the same thing, just ask that those support of this would just stand real quick.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Hi, Deborah Stanley, 285 Buena Vista Avenue, Athens. I also am very strongly in support of these changes to the ordinances. Just to let you know, Lisa Milet would normally be here. As you know, she's been working very hard on this, but she was called out of town, so that's why she's not here, in case you're wondering. I wanted to talk a little bit about the impact of not doing these things. The shelter this summer has been really full. It's really full right now. It's packed. They're having to euthanize animals that are potentially adoptable because there's no room for them. If we can get more animals fixed so that they're not running around and reproducing and there's fewer unwanted animals, everything that we can do to achieve that, we should be trying to do. The other issue, as Sarah mentioned, with the fireworks, we've got obviously more stray dogs are going to come in who run away and so on. And so when they come in, potentially that means somebody's going to be put down. I don't like to use the word euthanize because that implies it's in the interest of the animal. It's not. They're being put down because there's nowhere to put them. This has obviously it's terrible for the animals, but it's also hard on the people. It's hard on the people who work there. It's hard on the people who volunteer. I mean, all I do, I don't even go to the shelter. I just put our animals into Pet Finder, and I get distressed when I have to delete somebody for really no reason other than space. So everything that we can do to try and deal with this situation, I feel like we are really duty-bound to do. So that's one thing that I would say. The other impact, and I mentioned this before at a previous meeting, is I know 3 people who have been killed by dogs. I either know them directly or they were, at one remove. And I'm one person. Now, none of these are in Clarke County. One was in Atlanta, the little boy, and then there was an elderly couple in Lexington. But they're but for the grace of God, So I think whatever we can do with dogs that have been classified as dangerous or potentially dangerous, we should do to contain them, to check that they're properly contained every year, to make sure that they are neutered or spayed, etc. So to try and reduce that risk to people. And of course, it helps the dogs as well, because if they're not running around, they're not getting hit by cars, etc. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stanley. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, seeing nobody there, we'll come back behind the rail again, and we'll proceed with our old business. The first item is number 11, and it's the Baxter Street pedestrian crossing. And I'm not sure whose district that, Melissa.
Well,
Ms. Link's
it's mine and
district.
Mike's, I guess.
Mike, yeah.
Sorry.
The line goes
They
down.
share it.
You want to go first?
Making fun of Commissioner Harrod for a second, but now I'm back.
That makes a change.
Staff had proposed this crossing right here, and there's desperately a need for crossings and traffic calming on Baxter Street, especially in this section, because there is a downhill, and you actually do have a lot of thriving businesses in this area, and people are crossing back and forth. And he initially reached out to the owner of Homemade, which is right there in front of the crossing, right up on the street. The other businesses are up off the street, several, probably 5 rows of parking, I believe, before the storefronts are there. And the initial proposal blocked the driveway. Homemade has a very small parking lot and 2 driveways to access it, and there's really no room to turn around inside that driveway or inside that parking lot. So she had some concerns about the full-size crossing island or pedestrian island. So staff came back and proposed this smaller version of the island, and I shared it with the business owner, and it leaves room for 1 or 2 cars to stack and to get access the driveway. Those are the only driveways. That is the only driveway impacted by it. The other driveways aren't anywhere near the island. There's room for about 3 cars to stack to make a left turn into the other driveways. So yeah, the owner at Homemade is happy with this amended design and is happy to see it move forward because, yeah, her customers, they have some pretty close calls crossing the street. I've had close calls crossing the street right there, and there's a desperate need for traffic calming on Baxter Street, specifically in that location and in other locations.
Thank you, Ms. Link. Mr. Hibbett, do you want to speak to that?
I do, and I'll just, and I don't disagree at all with what Commissioner Link is saying, especially about the traffic calming, but I think out of courtesy to the other property owners around there, and specifically, and I know the person you were talking about as a business owner, there's also, and who rents from a property owner there. I think we would be doing a disservice if we actually didn't talk to some of those other folks around there, just to let them know what's going on, what it'll look like, and the time frame of it all, and get their feedback on it as well. So I'm going to make a motion, actually, to just put this on hold for until our next cycle, and then go from there, to give staff an opportunity to go and discuss this with, and Mr. Bradbury got him spoke. Corky Sam's is a property owner along there, and so I just think we should do that.
I'd like to second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Gertz.
Just following up on a couple comments I made at the agenda setting meeting, in which I expressed some reservation about the reduced scope of this project from its version approved last year to the version in front of us on this agenda. if this version would go through, I ultimately would be fine with that. I mean, I think ultimately what we all want is safe passage for the many people who move across the roadway. But at least some of my reservation was with the hindsight of the work done between 10 and 15 years ago on Baxter Street that really greatly enhanced, I think, the aesthetics and business attractability of that corridor. And so I would sort of make an early pitch for, as we look forward, thinking about that stretch from Collins Avenue really on down to Millage and wanting to see some enhancements in the future. So just kind of want to put that out there as rationale for some of my earlier comments and hope that we can do some more work. Because the stretch really from the library to where we're talking about is so much nicer than it was 20 years ago, and I think the other stretch deserves the same attention.
Thank you, Ms. Greer. Ms. Wright, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the aesthetics and part of the crosswalk with the medians, pedestrian guarding with the 2 trees in it. That one was put in a long time ago, and it's beautiful, and it just gives an extra element of aesthetic improvement, and I want us to continue to have that in mind because it's a great example. The trees look real healthy. It's obvious that there's something going on there, and you have shade while you're waiting. So anyway, I look forward to how this moves forward because I think one of the comments Commissioner Gertz you had brought forward was that with this, even the smaller refuge, a car, if it wanted to go past it and left into homemade, you kind of can't. So there's a point to where it's not going to have both in and out in both directions from both of those driveways. So, but you can't. But the speed of the car, anyway, it's good for it to have a little bit more time and more input.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't going to say anything after I second the motion, but I want to point this out. One of the businesses that I trade with because of my business is right there across from Homemade. Homemade is a wonderful business. It's been quite an asset, and it's a lovely offering for our community. But I do know the issues that it has presented with the parking that's being utilized to cross the street to go into Homemade. I've gone closer to lunchtime, and I can't go shop for my business. So I think this is going to create some discussion for all of them to look at in my business, parking is an issue, and I know how that becomes a disagreement between so many areas. So I think this will open the door for an open discussion of what can be done to help all of them in that immediate area that will be beneficial.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Bell.
you.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to hold that for 30 days, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Moratorium.
And our item number 13 is a report from our Government Operations Committee.
Number 12.
Oh, did I miss one? Oh, I'm sorry. I overlooked item number 12, the pavement maintenance project bid and award. Do we have any discussion on that one?
I just have a point of clarification again. I hate to be the one that always brings this up, but
No, that's
so
fine.
attachment number 2, which is, hang on a sec, I'll give you the, it's on page 85 of the PDF. It says rehabilitation, structural asphalt overlay, resurfacing, including preparatory treatments. So my question is, I was trying to compare what we got for TSPLOST and the what do you call it, the deficit list. And I noticed some of these are on the deficit list and some are not. So I'm just trying to understand, are these going to be paved this year? If these get paved with the monies that we're putting for, are these, let me ask a question. Are we paving these roads with the monies that we're approving tonight? And if so, then they need to be removed off that list, right?
Off the deficit
Will that
list?
happen? Yeah, is that how this works?
Well, obviously, we wouldn't pave, same street twice.
Right.
Hopefully, these will bear out, as far as the contract. We'll get through all of that without any issue. And yes, we'll reconcile the two.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Anybody else have it? Mr. Neesmith?
Yeah, I just want to point out that just because we've only been spending $4 million a year, is that right, Robert, for paving? Doesn't mean that we don't need to spend but $3.5 or $4 million a year from now on. We spent that kind of money because we didn't have enough money to do what we needed to do, and we're about $25 million behind. Guess what? That's what TSPLOST is for, is $25 million. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've actually Generally spend 2.5 to 3 million. This year is a little bit of an anomaly. We've gotten more money to put in there from general fund capital.
Anyone else wants to speak to this item before
I
we
would
vote?
like to move that we approve this award.
Thank you. Have a motion, second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now we'll go to item 13, which is our government operations report on residential parking permit program. And Mr. Harrod, you chaired that committee. You want to tell us about it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be fairly brief. I think everybody's read the report. So we were charged with looking at the residential residential parking permit program. And we discussed quite a lot of things with regards to this, but one of the issues, the primary issues that we wanted to look at was making it more straightforward for streets to get on the list. And so after some consultation with our staff, we are recommending some amendments to the criteria, or clarification perhaps of the criteria as listed in the report. And so with that, I will make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Harrod. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The ordinance.
Yes, sir.
There's an ordinance amendment that goes with that just to include by reference these new regulations, so I would like to read that.
Would you please?
An ordinance with respect to privileges and restrictions for residential parking permits, administrative regulations, and for other purposes.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and item number 14 is from our Legislative Review Committee, which is chaired by Jerry Neesmith. And so that I won't miss this, would you go ahead and read the amendment, the ordinance for us, Mr.
Yes,
Behrman? Because I
an
think there's
ordinance
some
to amend the Code of
clarification.
Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to animal control and for other purposes.
Thank you. Mr. Neesmith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just so the commissioners know, there was a change to this text amendment proposed by our attorney that was part of your package. And then we got another change suggested by the attorney, which is a one-word change. Changed as animals to cats and dogs. So I really appreciate the support from the public tonight. I haven't really heard any opposition whatsoever. Received an awful lot of very positive feedback from the public and from people in the animal welfare community supporting this. And just to be brief, what this does is it is mandatory microchipping of impounded animals, which will cost the animal owner $5 to $10. Mandatory spay or neutering upon the second impound prior to release. And the first impound, the owner will assign an acknowledgement about the requirement for spaying and neutering on the second impound. And then a clarification in terminology and rules for classified dogs, that's mean dogs, troublesome dogs, whatever the words are, that must be spayed and neutered, microchipped, and confined in a proper enclosure, subject to annual inspection by animal control. Animal control must be notified of any changes in status of or location of the classified dog. If it's sold, given away, passes, or whatever, then animal control needs to know that. So I'd like to move for acceptance of this proposal.
I second it.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion by any of our commissioners? And yeah, Mr. Harrod.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I intend to support this. I did have a conversation this afternoon with the attorney about this, which is why we have the slight one-word change.
It's our professor.
Well, what can I say? But in the course of that conversation, I just kind of throw this out to my colleagues because I unfortunately wasn't at the agenda setting meeting, so I missed the discussion there. But I note that on the new language, it talks about not releasing a dog that has on a second impoundment without it being spayed and neutered. And the conversation I had this afternoon related to the question of why are cats also not included in that. And from what the attorney said, according to animal control, that the answer to that question is because cats rarely come in and are returned in the way in which some of the dogs are. But I just throw this out to my colleagues, whether if we're trying to address issues of overpopulation in our community of cats and dogs, whether it's worth including cats or leaving the language just at no dog shall be released from impound. I just throw that out there.
Mr. Neesmith?
Gosh, I wish you were at our last meeting.
Maybe I'm glad I wasn't.
What's odd is I've been getting calls from cat owners who say, why are you worried about cats at all? We can't control them. They're right. You know, we really didn't discuss that, and I think we would need to have a discussion with some of our experts, including our manager or director of animal control, before we could really make an informed decision about that. I would be willing to table this for 30 days while the LRC gets that kind of discussion. I think an opportunity for this is not going to come up very soon, and we all know, because we've struggled, not me, but this body has struggled with the issue of feral cats for years. So I think it would be worth having a further discussion about this.
And I just want everybody to be clear, I'm not opposed to,
I know.
I'm fully in support of this, but it does seem to me that there's some logic. If we're trying to use this as one mechanism of addressing overpopulation of cats and dogs, then it seems to make sense to broaden that discussion.
Mr. Bailey, you want to comment?
I think the manager has something to say.
I would say that the scale of this is that we only see about half dozen cats or so a year to that point. And we don't want to be hasty, but to Commissioner Harrod's point, we don't have any issues if y'all want to make that change.
Did you want to say something?
Thank you. What I would suggest, I think that Commissioner Harrod's input is good input, and we should discuss it more at the LRC. But I think we should just go ahead and vote on this issue tonight and get it in place. And if we need to make a minor change to it later, we can do that at the time. I don't personally see a reason to delay.
Well, Mr. Hamby, I'll come back to you.
I was going to say the same thing,
Okay.
Jerry.
Ms. Wright should ask to be recognized.
Yeah, I think that the comments and the support from the community that has come in and sort of added the population control part to this is good, and it was more, not the exact focus of how this got to the committee. As I recall, it was more about the danger of, or the dog and what motivates dogs for the prowling and the potential dangers for that. And that came up, I think, when we were doing the confinement update. So we were pretty much focused on that, as some of the people talked about, the dog running loose, getting hit by a car. Cats are a little more elusive, I think, for that kind of. But if we're going to add the cats, I'd like to talk about them separately and do that recommendation of getting this on the books, get the help and the positives from this going for the canine population that we were focused on. And then I'll support it coming back and us talking about other parts.
Mr. Neesmith.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Perhaps you would consider sending it back to LRC in the near future for the purpose of looking at cats and
I will be happy to do that.
overpopulation. Okay,
Because
so
I think the people here tonight that are interested in this
Yeah.
will be happy to see us
I
make a
agree.
decision.
I
So,
agree. Thank you.
So we have a
Thank you,
motion on the
guys.
floor. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, guys. Item number 15 is the Athens Student Apartments LLC, and they've asked for an abandonment process to be started for Wynter Court and a portion of Spring Court. And this is in Commissioner Gert's district. Would
Thank you,
like to-
Madam Mayor. We had a little bit of conversation about this at the agenda-setting meeting, and of course, road abandonment is a two-cycle process, so there would be no final action tonight. What we would be deciding tonight is to move forward with the next meeting. Just to kind of orient everybody, this pair of roads, Spring and Wynter, are immediately off North Avenue. They're not accessible by any other roadways. And at one point, in addition to roughly 9 acres of multifamily property accessible off this pair of roads, there's been just over an acre consisting of 5 RS8 or single-family parcels also accessible from these two roads. That applicant is also in the midst of a rezoning request to RM1, which is our least dense multifamily zoning category. And they're able to do that because all of this property is now in common ownership. At one point, again, that 9 acres was owned by one entity with the acre and a quarter roughly, comprised of 5 lots, by a series of other folks. And this developer has bought those properties. You know, we're certainly going to have that conversation about the rezoning. There's some hurdles that the applicant will have to go through. If there's going to be any significant increase in density, they're going to have to seek a second point of egress. I'm certainly very interested, as I always am, in making sure that as multifamily properties, those don't negatively impinge on their backyard neighbors. But again, that conversation will continue. Given that this is all in common ownership, I'm fine with moving ahead with this conversation around road abandonment at this point.
Great. Mr. Neesmith?
Madam Mayor, I have lots of issues with this, the biggest one of which is we're not sure what they're doing. The reason they want the roads abandoned is not because they want to change them, but because they want that acreage counted in their density computation when they go to build their multifamily homes. Part of these, there are several lots there that are still zoned RS8, residential single family. That's part the rezone about is that they're doing quite separately from this. And you may note also that there's a possibility that they will be required to add another egress to this property when they do the development. I asked why they weren't doing a planned development, and that's because they said it's because they don't need any waivers. Well, obviously, they're going to need something in order to get this egress in. And for us to give away our roads so that a developer can have a better computation of density, I find that to be inappropriate. It's legal, I know that, but if we're going to have a development there and we're going to give our roads for it, we need to know what it is. And this is just one step in the process. The next is the rezoning, and then they have to do their plans and go through plans review, which may or may not result in a PD, but we're just giving away the road to make it easier for them to do a development that we may or may not like, and we may need those roads in the future. So I'm going to move for denial.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item? Mr. Harrod?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I tend to agree with Commissioner Neesmith, but I just wanted to have some clarification. Did I read in this somewhere that this was also planned to be a gated community?
Yes, you did.
Okay, because I'm really not interested in helping anybody put in a gated community anywhere in the community, so I intend to support the motion.
Ms. Wright and then Mr.
Yeah, I completely share Commissioner Neesmith's concerns about this and Commissioner Harrod's too about the gated community, especially in this location. This is an in-town location. This is an opportunity to encourage a kind of inclusive development, a connected development. We give away those roads, and that parcel of land can never be anything else but a separate, walled-off community and never connect to the neighborhood adjacent to it. If you look at it, you know, overhead and the nearby neighborhood that backs up to it, you know, right now that neighborhood may not want to connect to what is inevitably going to be yet another luxury student exclusive development. But 20 years from now, what is it going to be? We've seen our high-end student housing become workforce housing. Where is this going to be in 10 or 20 years? I mean, even projects that were, you know, built only 15 years ago are going in that direction. You know, I really think, you know, if they want to make these exclusive roads, then they come back with a planned development, and you know, there should be a little give and take in these kind of processes. I'm not in favor of private roads in this location for a long list of reasons. And, you know, I'm really looking at the future. We give away these roads and we never get them back. And all those folks in that neighborhood behind them have no access to North Avenue, which is a major commercial corridor that has great potential to be a very mixed-use corridor.
Thank you, Ms. Link. Mr. Gertz?
Just a couple of points around clarification of some of the sort of access and orientation things that have been under discussion tonight. Of course, people living immediately behind here have access to North Avenue via Ruth and North Side, very nearby roads that intersect with North Avenue. And currently, if an applicant was to have a single multifamily project, by right, that could be a gated community, just as is the College Lodge just downhill on North Avenue, and the first development just behind the old Sky City commercial area on Old Hull Road. So, and I share some concerns about gated communities generally, but if we wish not to have gated communities, we need to look at our code text and say, let's modify our code text to not allow multifamily gated communities, if that's the will of this body. It's a relatively minor request, and again, given that this is in common ownership, this is not much different than any other multifamily complex, and the forthcoming rezoning really only deals with that acre and a quarter. Just to put this in context in terms of even number of beds, on RS lots, you have no maximum number of beds. We look at lot coverage and other factors that might impinge upon that, but ultimately, if you wanted to have, multiple bedrooms in those RS lots, you could do that by right now. And certainly at one point, there had been homes with multiple bedrooms sitting on many of those lots. So again, this is a small scale request. What we would be potentially looking at is a modification of about 10% of the land accessible off of these two roads. So, while I understand some of the qualms, we do have a couple more bites at this apple, most significantly the rezoning request, in which we can put any number of design requirements. And I think that would be the appropriate venue for somebody to say, I want this to look like or not look like X, Y, Z. So I'm going to make a substitute motion for acceptance of this agenda report and moving forward.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for the substitute motion. Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's been shown in my voting history that I don't like us to close roads, and I don't like us to give away our property. There are times when we have abandoned right-of-ways, and there's been some benefit to either some landlocked properties or to the community in general. I think if we are giving these streets to this developer, it's a gift. They should be paying for this. This is not, why doesn't every developer come and just ask for the roads? They have a value. Why would we just give them to them? And the second point I'd like to make is there have been some developments where, in Athens-Clarke County, where the roads were privately owned. Developers came in, built the roads, built the houses, and then those landowners, those property owners that bought the houses there got no benefit from the upkeep of roads. There's a very good example of this in Jerry's district, where the developer's long gone, and the roads haven't been repaired. They don't have the money to make the repairs, and their property values are suffering greatly. So I don't think there's any instance where we should just give a road to a development. Thank you.
Mr. Neesmith.
Number one, we're being asked to give these roads to the developer before the RSA lots are changed. They are still RSA lots. Let's say that zoning doesn't pass and they're still single-family lots. Well, now we've taken the road away from them, and those homeowners are responsible for that road. Is the zoning going to pass? I don't know. Second of all, we have no control. This is going to be a straight rezone, Commissioner Gertz. We'll have no control over what is on those lots other than what's in our ordinance for residential multifamily. So no, we're not going to be able to necessarily control what happens in this on this piece of property through the rezoning process.
Mr. Williams wanted to say something. Then I'll get to you, Mr. Sims, and then Mr. Gertz.
Well, just to clarify, Commissioner Bailey, this was a bit unusual. We typically don't have these written in, but there was a reversionary clause that went with the roads. When the developer deeded them to the city, it said if we ever abandoned them, it would go back to them at no cost.
Yeah, I
So that-
wasn't aware of that, but and I appreciate that information, but I will stand
Yep.
that we do not need to be giving away any of our roads. We own it now.
Just a point of information, that's all.
Thank you, though.
Yeah.
Mr. Sims?
Just a few months ago, we had a potential road development coming in they were talking about private roads, and we had heartburns about that. And I don't see this being any different than that in terms of, who was gonna maintain them once they, again, I've got several places in my district where, they're privately owned little private streets, and they aren't maintained by the owners, but this is rent, and they have rental property on it. And they're collecting the rent, but they aren't keeping the roads maintained, ditches and gullies almost to get in there, but, the tenants will continue to pay the money. So why should we, again, give away what we already have, And, if I were an owner, I would want it to be owned by the city so that they would be maintained, And what are we talking about right now with TSPLOST? Maintenance of roads. And then here's a good example of what the potential could be, that these roads may not be continued to be maintained once the beautiful, goodness or the newness of it all wears off. Everything looks good for a while, and then when the newness wears off, then we have a problem, and nobody wants to step up to the plate then.
Mr. Gertz, you want to speak to this again?
Yeah, I want to respond to a couple of points. The contrast between both the application that came to us that was off Epps Bridge and the development behind the mall that's in Commissioner Neesmith's district is that those were potentially a variety of owners in a single-family situation. And so you did have some unique individual owners who might be negatively impacted. That's not the situation here. This is currently in common ownership. This isn't in prospective common ownership. This is currently a student development rental agent who owns all of this property. And again, as Manager Williams noted, these streets were once owned by the contiguous owner, and they were provided to the city. To think about this in relationship to TSPLOST, if we take these off the public rolls, this is one more set of streets for which we don't have to see prospectively on that repaving list. And so something else gets bumped up further as a result.
Okay,
So again, I consider this a fairly minor request, but one that's reasonable, given that common ownership.
Before we vote, is there any further discussion?
I have a quick question. So it appears that this is likely to ask for a straight-up rezone to RM1, correct? Would that zoning allow for condo development where folks could own their homes and not necessarily own the land around it?
I'd have to ask Brad about that.
Jerry might know.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I mean,
So we could end up.
You could feasibly sell it. I don't know what the zoning would allow for that, though.
But in RM1,
Okay.
condos are allowed, or even townhome-style development, correct?
Condominium ownership is allowed.
That's true, yes.
Mr. Hamby?
So we could end up with that situation that we feared in that Epps Bridge project.
Mr. Hamby?
Well, I think Commissioner Gertz is making an important distinction that this is commonly owned piece of property right now. And, certainly, whether or not this comes back to us or not, if it's a commonly owned property, and also if you're a multifamily right now with a bunch of apartments, you already have a private street. So I'm having trouble distinguishing between that and what's being asked of us right here.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor, and it's to go back to the original staff recommendation,
Just
which
deny
is.
the abandonment. To deny, I'm sorry.
No, the substitute motion was to approve. So we're going to have a roll call vote, Ms. Spradlin, and this is to approve the request.
Gertz?
Yes.
Link?
No.
Wright?
No.
Bailey?
No.
Neesmith?
No.
Hamby?
Yes.
Bale?
Yes.
Harrod?
No.
Dickerson?
No.
Sims?
No.
3 yes, 7 no.
Okay, so the substitute has failed. We'll go back now to the motion, the original motion that was to deny, and we'll do a roll call on that one.
Neesmith?
Yes.
Hamby?
Yes.
Bale?
Yes.
Harrod?
Yes.
Dickerson?
Yes.
Sims?
Yes.
Gertz?
No.
Link?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
9 yes, 1 no.
Okay, so the motion has failed, so, or the item request has failed. So we'll now go to item number 16, which is the use of the Downtown Enhancement Program, which we refer to as DEP funds for parking management system replacement. And I'd ask Mr. Hamby to help us with that one since he's on the ADDA.
Okay, I'll be glad to. And as y'all know, this is DEP funds that come from our parking revenue. This is one of the items that the parking revenues help fund, and it's a fund there that's used for things like this that come up. And what's come up is a need for some new software to help manage our parking system downtown with the pay and display meters and ticketing processes. So that's what this money is there for. It's part of the money. As we get the RFPs back, we'll see how much this will cost, and then it'll be determined where the rest of it will come from. So this is, like I said, coming from parking revenues. It's not coming from general fund. It's money that's set aside for downtown enhancement programs such as this. And what this is going to enhance is our ability to be more efficient with the parking system. It will also allow us the opportunity to hopefully get a license plate reader that we've been trying for some time to partner with some other folks on in our government. But this will allow us to go ahead and get that. That will allow us to be even more efficient in collecting some fines that are outstanding. And as y'all know, there's quite a bit of that. So hopefully, I'd like to think at the end of the day that this will pay for itself. So I'll make a motion. Yes, ma'am. Make a motion to approve use of DEP funds for this purchase.
Second.
We have motion second. And in case everybody didn't understand from Mike's description here, the computer programs that he's talking about are functionally not working now. So it's making it very difficult for us to issue tickets and track those things. So.
Oh, but just so everybody knows, we're still issuing tickets.
Oh, yeah, we're still issuing tickets, but it's more difficult.
Get a ticket.
So, yeah. So we have a motion second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that gets us to our new business.
Madam Mayor, move for suspension of rules.
Have a motion for suspension of rules to have a second.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the first item under our suspension of rules is our nominating committee report for our various boards and authorities. Do I have a motion for that?
So move.
Have a motion for acceptance? And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so I'll let you know who these new citizens who are helping us are. Athens Downtown Development Authority, Peter Dugas, Katrina Evans, and Loretta Pollock. Let's see, I was making sure one of those is a partial term. Peter Dugas' term is expiring on 7/31 of 18. The other two expire on 7/31 of 19. On our Mental Health Development Disabilities and Addictive Diseases Regional 2 Advisory Council is Linda Alteris. I hope I've said that right. And that's a 3-year term expiring on 6/30 of 20. On our Vision Committee, Wendy David for a partial term expiring on 6/30 of 18. Susan Bogardas, a 3-year term expiring on 6/30 of 20. Kelly Happy, a 3-year term expiring on 6/30 of 20. Adam Levine, a 3-year term expiring on 6/30 of 20. And thank you very much to all of you who are going to be helping us with this. But thank you for those who applied and were not selected this time. Please keep trying, because we have a lot of work that our citizens can help us with. These are valuable committees that you'll be working on. And we have a couple of items under item 19. Oh, we already voted to approve them, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, and we've got a couple of items under suspension of rules. One relates to the development of activities in the commercial downtown district. Bill, I believe you have a resolution for us. Do you mind reading it?
Yes. The heading is an amendment to resolution establishing a temporary moratorium on, 1, the acceptance of new applications for special use approval, permitted use approval, or building permits for any multifamily residential use or 2, changes of use or increases in occupancy limits by establishments holding or seeking to hold certain alcoholic beverages licenses in the commercial downtown CD zoning district. Whereas on February 7th, 2017, the Mayor and Commission of the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County adopted a resolution imposing a temporary moratorium on 1, the acceptance of new applications for special use approval, permitted use approval, or building permits for any multifamily residential use, or 2, changes of use or increases in occupancy limits by establishments holding or seeking to hold certain alcoholic beverages licenses in the commercial CD zoning district, referred to as the February 7th, 2017 moratorium resolution. Whereas the Mayor and Commission desire to amend the February 7, 2017 moratorium resolution for the purpose of excluding certain properties previously approved as planned developments pursuant to the Athens-Clarke County zoning ordinance from such moratorium, and now for the Commission of Athens-Clarke County hereby resolves as follows. The February 7, 2017 moratorium resolution is hereby amended to provide that the moratorium on final plans review approval and the acceptance of applications for and issuance of building permits for multifamily residential units in the commercial downtown CD district shall not apply to any property approved by the Mayor and Commission as a planned development prior to February 7, 2017, except as amended hereby. The February 7, 2017 moratorium resolution shall remain in full force and effect.
Okay, and for an English interpretation of those who are watching us, that relates to the Prince Avenue project that's in the old St. Joseph's Church area, which was not in the downtown area when we approved the planned development. When we extended the borders of ADDA, Downtown Development District, it affected them, and this is to exempt them from that moratorium. So do we have a motion for the acceptance of the resolution?
Approval, Madam Mayor.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we have one more thing under suspension of rules, and that's, I believe Ms. Dickerson has probably a motion for us. It relates to the pretreatment of wastewater.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. So since our June 6th meeting, and reason for reconsideration is additional information come to light that some of us would like to investigate a little bit more. So everybody should have in their packet the motion. I guess I'll read it, but the motion and the ordinance is attached, and we'll ask Bill to explain about the amendment piece of it. But the motion is to adopt the ordinance amending Section 5-1-3 of the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, to provide for an effective date of July 1st, 2018, and that the mayor assign the issue of septage fees to a standing committee. And Bill, if you'll explain about the amendment piece, since we had a discussion prior to the meeting.
Yes, basically this adopts the ordinance with the fees as it was adopted back at the earlier meeting in June. However, it has an effective date of July 1st, 2018, unless sooner amended by action of the commission. And the reason I suggested doing it this way was, instead of just doing a straight-up rejection, was that the rules of commission require that a matter that's rejected cannot be reconsidered until the following calendar year. So this just gives more flexibility rather than an outright denial.
Okay, thank you.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Ryan?
I have a question. Can somebody tell me the effective date that we voted on already? That it was supposed to be effective by?
I think July 1st.
I think it was August 1st.
Okay.
Because we imagine some of the vendors had quotes out that they would want to be able to honor, so
Okay.
there was a delay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Before we vote, I just want to say, many of us received some very informative information from a member of the industry in the last few weeks or few days. It was very, very informative, and I want to thank him for doing this. I know he's not being totally altruistic, but he certainly had his facts straight to make it easy to understand what the issues are and the unintended consequences of this proposed rate hike. So I appreciate that, and let him know that we're going to work hard and listen to him and other people to make it better. Make a better decision.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I echo what Commissioner Neesmith said. And I guess I heard correctly that this will be going into some committee. Is that correct?
That's what we're asking.
Ms. Bailey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to make a comment. We have had some criticism before from within our own group about doing things last minute and not having enough information before we vote on things. And I think that's valid. We need more time. But I'd just like to say that with the changeover in our email system starting Friday and all the storms, I've had very hard time getting information the past few days. And of course, we've got the holiday and this is an unusual day for meetings. So I just want to say that there's a lot of information I have not been able to read yet, such as this. And it's nothing against Sharon bringing it up. I'm just saying right now, the timing has been really bad for getting information for me.
I think that's for all of us.
Yeah, okay. All right, so again, like I say, it was not a criticism, it's just kind of, it's the way things fell this week.
A statement of facts. Ms. Link.
Yeah, I just want to say that this issue is long overdue to be discussed by a committee in a comprehensive, kind of holistic manner. It's not just about, septic disposal fees, but it's about, whether or not we're going to require pumping of septic tanks. We've had this discussion in the health department as well, and we had the discussion in work sessions when we're talking about our stormwater and our stream water quality. So I hope that, the discussion that happens, the discussion that this issue spurs is a holistic one, and we can talk about, even ordinances requiring or incentivizing composting toilets, which can greatly lengthen the life of a septic tank, and mandating regular pumping, which can greatly lengthen the life of a septic tank. So I look forward to a really comprehensive and expansive discussion about this issue.
Okay, any further discussion? We have yes.
Could I be reminded, we had a work session on this? Wasn't that just 2 months ago? Mm-hmm. Do I remember on this whole topic? Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I thought that we were doing it for financial reasons, for the cost that was for us and how long it had been before it had been. Do I not remember that? Did we not have a work session on this?
I don't think you're misremembering.
Wrong topic?
Yeah, it was.
I think
Must be a different topic.
Yeah.
I believe what brought this to our attention is that we had one business in our community that is involved in this particular industry, and he was not aware that it was being discussed. And I think he talked to some of our commissioners about the issue, and a number of them here felt like it was important for us to go back and pull that out of the original discussion of cost of services and look at it again. It doesn't mean we won't come back with the same answer, but
I just need that clarification.
to readdress
It
it. But
was a
no,
lot of fireworks yesterday and everything. I'm not clear. Still a little foggy.
You were correct even with the ringing ears. So, okay, we have a motion, Ms.
I just want to make a point. I guess there are some other issues, as Commissioner Link mentioned, and I think economic development may be one of them. And one of the reasons that this came forward as a concern of mine is that it may be that this isn't a service that we need to be providing as a government, potentially, or it could be something that a private company could be doing as well, providing jobs. So I think that's part of the discussion that needs to take place as well. And so, we shouldn't necessarily be providing things that the private sector can do if they're available to do. And I think that's a discussion that hasn't happened. Going back, even when I was working with the solid waste department, anytime there were changes in fees, haulers were notified and there was opportunity for them to discuss. And I went back and I didn't see that. I don't know how we missed that, and maybe it happened, it just wasn't in the report. But I think it's important that the haulers be notified and given opportunity to talk about it. And maybe, like I said, maybe that did happen, but it's not said in the report that we did that. So I just think it's a good opportunity to take a pause, let's talk about it, and let's discuss all these other issues before we move forward.
Okay. Mr. Gertz.
Just as a brief note, given that we've been contacted by the individual in this industry, I want to make the point that the individual had high praise for folks in the Public Utilities Department and spoke at length about the willingness of the department director and others in the department to have a conversation around how we manage septage. And so it's always nice when you hear about the good work being done by people for whom we're paying with our tax dollars, and this was one of those great, nice notes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Kurtz. Anybody else? We have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, I mean, yes, I oppose.
Okay, we have one opposition. Now we will go to our recommendations from our planning commission. And this is the time that anyone in our audience who would like to speak to us comes forward. But we deal with our planning items one item at a time. We'll have public input on the item. Then we'll come behind the rail, have discussion and a vote, and then we'll go back for the next item. So the first item is item number 18, which is a request from Williams and Associates for Clarke County Church of Christ for special use of RS-15 single-family residential on 1870 Danielsville Road. Proposed use is for a church. Did we have anybody sign up for 10 minutes for the change? Okay. So anyone that wishes to speak to that particular item, we have 3 minutes at the podium for you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is John Williams with Williams and Associates here tonight to represent Clarke County Church of Christ. It's a special use permit for a church, one that our ordinance requires for them to be able to move forward with building an expansion. Staff has recommended approval for the special use. We asked for 2 variances in conjunction with the special use, one being for sidewalks, another one being for fenestration of the building adjacent to the roadways. And as you know, Planning Commission, I believe, denied the recommendation for the sidewalks and approved the recommendation for the fenestration. So while we would definitely appreciate you considering the sidewalk issue, we understand and relate to how you feel about that in Clarke County. So we're more than happy to acquiesce to that if necessary to move forward under the special use permit as presented, as well as the fenestration would be really helpful. We appreciate the consideration in that matter. So thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Anyone else wish to address this item? Okay, I will come behind the rail now for this. And actually, we're going to have 3 votes. There are 2 variances, and we'll have to decide on those before we go to special use ordinance. So is there any discussion with commissioners? Yes, sir.
I have a hard time with their inability to meet our fenestration requirements because their interior design doesn't fit it. Seems to me the cart got before the horse here, that the interior design should have considered what our ordinance is required in terms of windows. So I'm not going to be able to support that waiver.
Okay. Anybody else wish to discuss it? Mr. Harrod?
I agree.
Anyone else? Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, when I looked at the plans, as far as the fenestration goes, I could not understand why a church would want a building that had so few windows. Most churches you think of having great natural light coming in and beautiful windows, and it looked very stark, and I think that we have good rules about fenestration, and I'm not in support of approving their variance request.
Anybody else? Mr. Hamby?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not real sure that we do have good rules about fenestration. When you see some of the stuff that's going up on Millage Avenue, and a lot of these buildings that are going up these days have windows on the front, plain blank walls on the side. So I see this as being no different than that.
Anyone else? Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just to make a note, I mean, I certainly understand people's concerns about fenestration. I think the face that we're talking about, that really falls further short of the formal fenestration requirements is one where the visual effect will be heavily mitigated by the planting plan. And so as a result, I'm fine with their extent of meeting the fenestration requirement. We'll talk about the sidewalks in a second. I certainly would want to affirm the Planning Commission's stance about connectivity, given the future development that we're going to see on Linda and on Danielsville Road, and really proximity to public amenities like both the firehouse and the J.J. Harris Elementary School. But just to reiterate some of the things I talked about last time.
Okay, since anybody else? Yes, sir.
Need to read the ordinance?
Oh, thank you.
An ordinance to amend the code of Athens, Clarke County, Georgia with respect to special use approval in the RS-15 single-family residential district on the approximate 5.0 acre parcel of land located at 1870 Danielsville Road and for other purposes.
Okay. We'll deal with fenestration variance first, since that's the one that's in contention. Do I have a motion on that one?
Motion for affirmation of the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Have a motion and second. Is there,
Probably do a roll call.
yeah, no further discussion before then? Okay, we'll do a roll call, please.
Gertz,
Yes.
Link,
No.
Wright,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Neesmith,
No.
Hamby,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Harrod,
No.
Dickerson,
No.
Sims.
Yes.
6 yes, 4 no.
Okay, so the variance has been accepted. And then the other variance is for elimination of the requirement for sidewalks on the public street frontage to the extent that the sidewalk on the frontage of Howell Drive shall not be required. Have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to affirm the Planning Commission's recommendation,
Have a motion? Do we have a second?
which would require sidewalks.
It's just that one little small section that would not be required. Mr. Bailey?
I'm just a little confused. I thought the fenestration was the second variance. Am I?
I reversed them since that was the one that seemed to be in contention.
Okay.
So now we're acting on the variance. Did you misvote because you
Yes,
thought we-
ma'am, I did.
Okay, well, we're gonna go back, and we're gonna go to the, we'll go ahead and vote on the sidewalk, since that one's the one on,
Okay.
before us now, and then we will re-vote on the other one. Okay, I have a motion on the variance for the sidewalks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Can you repeat the
Okay, the
motion?
The motion would require sidewalks on all but the small segment of court frontage that backs up to the property.
which is on Howard Drive, which is
Correct.
very, very short little section. We have the motion. Who's the second?
Sims.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor of that variance, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we will go back to the.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to reconsider.
Since that. The first variance vote was passed, there needs to be a motion to reconsider by someone who is on
I
the
just made
prevailing
it.
side.
I just made it.
Okay.
Yeah. Had a motion for reconsideration by Mr.
Oh, I wasn't
Neesmith.
on the prevailing side.
Oh,
You're right, never
okay,
mind.
we need a
I'll
motion.
make a motion to reconsider, Madam.
We have a motion by Mr. Hamby for reconsideration, second by Mr. Sims. Okay.
Okay.
Is there any discussion
Got to vote.
before we vote on that? And let's make sure that we understand what this is. This is a motion to allow the,
We have to vote on
the-
reconsidering first.
okay, I'm just clarifying what it is. This is the fenestration requirement that we're voting to allow them to have the variance on. We have a motion and a second on reconsideration. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Now we'll have a roll call vote on whether or not we're going to accept the variance for the fenestration.
Gertz,
Yes.
Link,
No.
Wright,
Yes.
Bailey,
No.
Neesmith,
No.
Hamby,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Harrod,
No.
Dickerson,
No.
Sims.
Yes. Uh-oh.
Okay,
5 yes, 5 no.
We have a vote and a tie, and I'm going to vote yes. So now we need to vote on the special use ordinance. Have you already read that bill, that portion? Okay. So do we have a motion on the
Motion for
special use?
approval, Madam Mayor.
Second.
Have a motion second for approval of the ordinance. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I see a lot of folks here from the church. Y'all can go home and start building now.
And Madam Mayor, I'd like to apologize for the confusion. I think you can understand why I got confused, but
I actually caused the confusion, but I said initially I was doing it, because that
Right.
was but it's okay, we got it fixed.
it all came out the same anyway.
It all came out fine. Is everybody all right to keep moving? Okay, we're now going to move to item number 19, which is a request by Barry Lord and Capital Resource Management for rezoning from AR, agricultural residential and airport overlay, to a single-family residential airport overlay of 8 acres known as 1370 Athens Road, Is there anyone here that would like to speak to that?
I'm Jay Bridgen, here on behalf of Capital Resource Management. What we're requesting is to take the 8.576 acres on 1370 Athens Road and turn it to RS 25. What we've done is on there is this is part of where the Firefly Trail is going to come down the railroad tracks. And so we have agreed to change the plat a few times with the plan and zoning so that there are no driveway accesses on that side of the road. We're blocking it off so that Firefly Trail, these lots are back up to it. All the access will come off Rannick Road and Athens Winterville Road. It was basically, it's got one house on it. We're gonna end up with 4 more lots than one house. All the lots are, the smallest lot is 1.214 acres. The largest lot is 2.4, and the one with the existing house on it is 2.075. So we got to vary between 1 and a little over 2 acre lots. What I've done here is to make it easy, is this is the subject property, the red and yellow stripe. Everything around it that is highlighted in yellow is less than 1 acre lots, okay? Everything that is in red is between 1 and 2 acre lots. So you can see that right there in the middle of us, everything around us is basically 1 and 2 acre lots, with the majority of them that are fronting Athens Road or Winterville Road, which is what we are more like 0.3 to 0.6 acre lots, the ones that are right up next to us. So that's our request, and when we did this, we looked at it as, you know, I know it was right on the verge of the agricultural area, but it's really more in our look, more like high density area. So I don't consider this high density, but we're planning on building 4 nice size, you know, structures, homes in there that we can resell. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Pridgeon. Anyone else in the audience wish to address this? Okay, we'll come behind the rail, and this is in Ms. Dickerson's district.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first issue we have to deal with is amending the future development map. And, you know, I pulled up the future development map, and this is clearly in mostly an employment industrial area. There is no single-family future land use within at least a mile, if not more, of this property, with the exception of residential housing, which is across the street and has been there for many, many years, and it's non-conforming. So this would be an isolated designation. And the only way that I feel like we could rezone this is if we had a consensus among ourselves that it's okay to change this one piece of property, you know, in an area that's heavily industrial employment. It's also in the fully, except for one tiny little corner of this, fully in the airport overlay. We are looking right now at increasing traffic at the airport. That's a concern for safety and also noise. I think it's a bad idea, sets a bad precedent to increase residential density in these kind of employment industrial areas. And so I'm going to motion that we deny the request to amend the future development map.
Have a motion to have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Behrman, would you read the ordinance for us, please?
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to amending the official future development map of Athens-Clarke County by changing the designation of the 8.576 acre parcel of land at 1370 Athens Road, currently designated as rural, to single-family residential and for other purposes.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion before we go to a vote?
Can I make one more comment?
Yes, ma'am.
So we are on the verge of, we've launched the whole comprehensive plan process. And I think that this is an opportunity to re-look at our future development map as soon as the comp plan is done. And I think that's the appropriate way to handle this so that we can have a larger discussion about these areas and not just changing, you know, piecemeal any of these zoning designations.
Ms. Link? Yeah.
I really don't have a problem with this project at all. I'm usually a little leery of changing our AR zoning, but I feel like it is completely appropriate here because of all the surrounding residential property, and also very much so because the Firefly Trail is right there. And, you know, I think that this is a good opportunity to get some, you know, maybe somewhat affordable single-family homes in an area where there's significant transportation connection. And also because it is close to our industrial zone, those people possibly might work in those businesses that are nearby. I really feel like this is an ideal location to do this kind of rezoning, and I really think that this is something that we need to look at in the comp plan is, you know, what kind of zoning and future development do we want to see along not just the Firefly Trail, but our greenways too. We have a serious need for affordable and workforce housing in our town, and you know, those are ideal locations to maybe start talking about upping the density and changing uses in future developments. So I'm actually really comfortable with this project.
Okay. Mr. Herod.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unless I misunderstood, I heard the petitioners say that they were going to put 4 houses on here on 8.6 acres. That's 2+ acres per house. This is never going to be affordable housing.
Moderate.
Mr. Neesmith, and I'll get to you, Mr. Hamby.
We're not going to let the Firefly Trail drive our zoning. We might have special rules for what happens in particular zones along the Firefly Trail. But to think that because the Firefly Trail might be here, justifying a rezone from agricultural to a single-family residential just makes no sense to me, Melissa. I'm sorry.
Mr. Hamby.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just wanted to point out something similar to Commissioner Neesmith and Commissioner Harry, that you know, the Athens Transit does not serve the area, and I do believe that if we're really focusing on our affordable housing issue, as I agree with Melissa, Commissioner Link that we ought to, then we need to be real mindful of whether or not we're creating another situation that we have to address, especially if there's no transportation available.
Mr. Sims, then I'll get to you, Ms. Lane.
Mr. Griffith, I was reading here where the recommendation coming from staff was denial. Could you give us the staff's rationale?
I can. You know, I think it came down to a couple of things. One, I think it's very closely to what Commissioner Dickerson has just indicated, that if you look at the future development map of the comprehensive plan, the nearest single-family land use designation, you've got to go over to the corner of Buddy Christian and Cherokee Road, I think, is the nearest available single family, which is a long way from this site. In order for this property to be rezoned to the RS-25 designation, it had to first be determined that it was an appropriate location for a single family future land use. That was the closest thing. And I think from a staff standpoint, we couldn't get really beyond that point. It's also within the approach of the airport. You know, granted, that is not the primary east-west runway, but it is still within the approach zone, and to increase the density at that location, it's adjacent to employment, future land use, and employment industrial zoning. And really, we did recognize that there was a lot of existing single-family property immediately south and west of this. All of that predates the 2000 comprehensive plan, the 2000 rezoning. It's really all identified as, it's certainly legal. It's legal non-conforming under the comprehensive plan's land use, as all that went to rural residential still as a future land use.
Thank you, sir.
Before you speak, is anybody hasn't spoken want to address this? Ms. Link?
I just want to point out, I didn't want to indicate that, you know, this was an appropriate location for your high-density, low-income, or affordable housing, but it's certainly an appropriate location for your middle-class, single-family home, someone who might want to live, you know, might want to build a home of their own, but, you know, has a hard time affording the $100,000 a lot that people are paying for some of our in-town neighborhoods. I feel like, you know, and plus with the Firefly Trail being right there, that is easy access. That is an easy transportation option. Folks can hop on their bikes and be in downtown Winterville in a matter of minutes, and downtown Athens in a few minutes more. You know, so I really see the merits of this kind of development in that particular area.
Did you want to speak, Ms. Wright?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. Did we get a second?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a motion. And you've read the ordinance for us. Okay, we've got to have two votes, I believe, on this. We have to vote to change the future development map. Was that the motion?
Yes.
That was the motion? Okay. So we'll, all in favor?
Roll call.
Well, the motion was to
Oh, let's-
deny.
Ma'am,
Roll call.
the motion is to deny the future development map. So we need to do a roll call on this, I believe.
Ready?
Dickerson,
No. Or, well, yes, sorry, yes, sorry.
This is for denial now,
Yes,
folks, so.
yes, deny.
okay, Sims.
Yes.
Gertz,
Yes.
Blink,
No.
Wright,
No.
Bailey,
No.
Neesmith,
Yes.
Hamby,
Yes.
Bale,
Yes.
Harrod.
Yes.
7 yes, 3 no.
Okay, so the future development map has been rejected, so the rezoning is a moot point, correct,
We
Bill?
have to vote on that.
I think we should go ahead and vote on it. Because the petitioner did apply, so I think the due
Okay.
process should be followed. So I'll need to read that ordinance first. An ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to rezoning an 8.576 acre parcel of land located at 1370 Athens Road from AR AZ3 Agricultural Residential Airport Overlay to RS 25 AZ3 Single Family Residential Airport Overlay and for other purposes.
Okay.
I have a
Mr.
question
Neesmith, yes.
of the attorney. In the possibility that we vote to recommend this rezoning, but we don't have a future development map approved, what happens?
That's a good point, but I just think as a matter of due process, the mayor and commission should address it.
What's
I
the
don't think
process
that's gonna-
after that if that were to occur?
I'm sorry.
What would be the process after that if that were to occur?
Well, I would think that no permits could be issued.
Okay.
You have to vote before you can find out.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, if,
Down the rabbit hole.
Sorry, sorry.
you know, the zoning procedures law in the state of Georgia does provide property owners certain rights, and I
Right.
think that to afford those
Understand.
rights, even if the outcome could be absurd hypothetically, I think it's probably a good idea to go ahead and do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I motion to deny their request
Second.
of rezoning.
Okay, I have a motion, and a second to deny. Ms. Neesmith was the second. To deny the rezoning of this property. Roll call, please.
Dickerson,
Yes.
Sims.
Yes.
Gertz.
Yes.
Blink.
No.
Wright,
No.
Bailey,
No.
Neesmith,
Yes.
Hamby,
Yes.
Bale,
Yes.
Harrod.
Yes.
7 yes, 3 no.
Thanks for consistent.
So we have denied this project.
All right.
Okay. And the final item under this category tonight is item number 20, which is the request from Armentrout, Charles Armentrout, for special use permit in commercial neighborhood for 1.5 acres on Tallassee Road. Proposed use will be, well, I'm going to put this in lay words. What this is basically to allow a drive-in window at a liquor store. So would you like to speak to us, Mr. Armentrout?
Thank you. I'm Charlie Armentrout, representing the owner of the facility. I live at 996 Riverbend Parkway. There's several points I'd like to make about this special use request. First of all, this location is in a neighborhood that's bordered by housing, and as most of you know, when you have a order board and speaker system in a neighborhood like this, it can be objectionable to the surrounding housing. However, in this particular location, there is no order board or speaker system. In fact, the orders are not allowed to be taken until the identification and age have been verified of the person who's proposing to purchase the product. So the person cannot order ahead of coming to the window. Second point is relative to the parking. The parking at this site meets all the requirements as set forth in the ordinance. The business has been operating for about 6 weeks now, and it's been very successful. However, parking is very tight, and it's tight primarily due to the stream buffer requirements, because there is a stream going through the property. rather than apply for a variance to the stream buffer, we felt that the drive-through would be a better alternative and would be more environmentally acceptable. The third issue I'd like to point out is the convenience. A lot of customers of this establishment are, some of them are parents with their children in the car, and this provides a level of convenience to be able to drive through to the window and purchase whatever they're going to purchase to a limit. They don't have to unbuckle their children and take them in. They don't have to park. So we think it would be a faster, easier, more convenient, and less burdensome. In fact, the owner of the establishment has asked for people who been shopping there about this, and most of them have cited convenience as a reason why they think this would be a good idea. Some of them have cited the fact that they're handicapped, and it allows them a way to shop at the window without having to deal with getting out of their vehicles and negotiating the pathway to the store and so on. There are limitations that the owner is proposed in this application and that would be applied here. First of all, there has to be a presentation of proper ID, obviously, and there's a placement of a limitation on the order. They can't order a huge amount of product. Excuse me.
I was trying to let you finish without interrupting you.
Well, that's essentially it. So we're asking that you consider this and approve it.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
be able to
Armentrout.
answer any questions.
Anybody else wish to address this issue? Okay, we'll come behind the rail. Mr. Behrman, you have an ordinance for us?
Yes, there are two. The first is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to amending the official future development map of Athens-Clarke County by changing the designation of the approximate 1.04 acre parcel of land at 106 Tallassee Road, currently designated as employment, to neighborhood mixed use and for other purposes. The next is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to special use approval in the CN Commercial Neighborhood District on the 1.04 acre parcel of land located at 106 Tallassee Road and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Behrman. And we'll have to have two votes on this, and this is Mr. Bailey's district.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to address it. Thank you. I have visited this location on a couple of occasions, and it has an unusual flow of traffic in the parking lot. As Mr. Armentrout mentioned, that part of it has to do with the amount of usable land. I think that the use of a drive-through window is going to actually help that a little bit, because people going to the drive-through window won't have to park, and it is somewhat challenging. So I think it is a reasonable request. It is something, of course, that other package stores have. It's not a brand-new thing. It's something we allow in our ordinances. The only thing about it, of course, I think in the bigger picture, nothing to do with this particular request, we are sending mixed messages when we allow package stores to have drive-through windows, and a mixed message about drinking and driving, but no reason to hold that against this request. I just wanted to air that out. But I actually think it will help in a situation where it is a somewhat unusual flow of traffic and parking situation.
So you're making a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, we've got two votes.
Okay.
Future development map.
And for the approval of the future development map as well. So I'll make a motion for that.
Any reason not to put them together, Bill?
Voted separately.
Okay. We have a motion for the future development map. Is that okay?
We do that one first, then I'd
Okay.
like to make a motion to approve that, please, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Have a motion, second. Any discussion? Mr. Herod?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I guess my only comment is that the proposed, looking at the definition of what a neighborhood mixed-use classification is, it says auto-oriented uses are not included in this designation, and I can't imagine anything that's more auto-oriented than a drive-up window, so.
What did it say was not permitted again?
It says proposed neighborhood mixed-use future development map classification is described as follows. It anticipates a broad variety of uses, Auto-oriented uses are not included in this designation.
Auto, okay.
And I said I can't imagine anything more auto-centric or auto-oriented than a drive-up window.
Okay. Any further discussion on this, Mr. Neesmith?
I mean, without seeing attempts to rectify it, I mean, obviously, part of their parking problem is that they have 2 lanes of traffic in the back of the building, one for parking and exit, and the other for the drive-in. So I wonder how much parking they would have if they didn't have a drive-in. So I don't buy that they needed this for parking. I guess one could justify that you're stacking cars rather than parking cars, but you'd have to stack a lot of cars to make up for if at one time, to make up for the parking that you could have otherwise had.
Anybody else?
I would like to say about the Commissioner Harrod's comment. This is an existing business. It's already been approved. People are already driving there. I don't really see the conflict. It's not that we're, this is a valid legal use that they're asking for. It's not a business that isn't, it's just conceptual. Thank you.
Ms. Link?
I will say that it's pretty difficult to walk in that area. You know, so the idea of a drive-through there makes perfect sense. I don't foresee too many people actually walking down from Forest Heights. I have lots of friends in Forest Heights who I know are pretty excited about this store. Some of whom do have small children who they have to buckle in and out of their seats. So, you know, I think this is one of those occasions where, you know, our one-size-fits-all zoning doesn't necessarily fit what's already there. And I don't have a problem with the drive-through. And I think that it will serve, you know, it will solve some of the parking issues and make it easier for the folks who do live in the area to actually patronize the business.
Okay. Any further discussion? Would you do a roll call vote, Ms. Spradlin, please?
Bailey?
Yes.
Neesmith?
No.
Hamby?
Yes.
Bale?
Yes.
Harrod?
No.
Dickerson?
No.
Sims? Gertz?
Yes.
Link?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Okay. We voted to change the future development map. Now we go to the special use.
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the special use for this request for a drive-through window.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Have a motion second by Mr. Gertz. Any discussion before we vote? Okay, I don't believe we need a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's go back and do a roll call, because I can't tell who said yes and who did no.
Bailey?
Yes.
Neesmith?
No.
Hamby?
Yes.
Bale?
Yes.
Harrod?
Nope.
Dickerson?
No.
Sims? Gertz?
Yes.
Link?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Okay, so the special use passed.
7-3.
Okay, thank you. We will now go to item number 21, which is a text amendment regarding the definition of a drug rehab center. Is there anyone that would like to address that to us tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll come behind the rail. We have an ordinance, Mr. Behrman.
An ordinance to amend the code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to drug rehabilitation center definition and for other purposes.
Motion for approval, Madam Mayor.
Have a motion for approval and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And this is the time for citizen input from anyone that's here tonight who would like to speak to us about anything that was not on our agenda. Is anyone who wishes to speak to us?
Hello. I'm Tom Wilfong, a citizen of Athens-Clarke County. I live at 570 Millage Circle. I've lived there for 37 years. I'm also speaking for my neighbors, Peg and Norm Wood at 575, Katie and Oliver Pryor at 655, and Barbara and Vince Dooley at 755. I want to add parenthetically that I have served as a trustee of Athens-Clarke Heritage Foundation for 18 years. I've also been a longtime member of Athens Historical Society and past president. I think I understand historic preservation. Our neighborhood, the 34 numbered lots between McWhorter Drive and Westlake Drive, are overwhelmingly opposed to the action you took in May, imposing a year-long moratorium on demolition and construction for the purposes of studying a possible Millage Circle Historic District, which we also do not want. I ask you to consider removing the western end of Millage Circle from the study and to rescind the moratorium on that area. Of the 34 homeowners on that block, I want you to hear the names of the 20 who signed petitions against the moratorium. And Oliver Pryor, I know, wrote what I thought was a very good letter to you last week and pointed out that the 14 who I don't call are not necessarily in favor of it. 2 we were not able to get in touch with, and then 1 told me that she does not know enough about the issues to cast her vote either yay or nay. So she did not want to get involved. Starting at the bottom of the hill on the north side and then working our way up, these are my neighbors who signed the petition against what you have done. Susan and Jeff Chesser, Nancy and Mark Dulesky, Debbie and Warren Morris, Bethany and Tyler Davis, Mary Holland, Helen Gregory, Karen and Connie Brown, Allison and Jason Hodge, Frida and Jim Clark, Tom Wilfong, Bree and Richard Hayes, and then crossing Millage Circle at the Dogleg, now on the south side, Mike Swanson, Pat and Bobby Roan, Jennifer and Mike Fitzgerald, Peg and Norm Wood, Katie and Oliver Pryor, Melissa and Carl Sinowitz, Leslie and John Doris, Barbara and Vince Dooley, Robin and John Roberts. We do not think this moratorium is necessary. We do not want to be designated a local historic district. We ask for your consideration in making these changes. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wilfong. Anyone else wish to speak with us? Okay, seeing none, we're going to come behind the rail and, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you getting up.
Sorry, I was a little slow. I'm Carrie Ritzler. I live at 325 Anns Court. And there was a study recently published, and it was in the Athens Banner Herald and a few other places, that was looking at the effects of climate change county by county. And according to this study, southern counties will fare the worst, and poor counties will fare the worst, and we're both of those. In addition, about the same time, many scientists signed a letter, and it was reported in the Washington Post, and the gist of it was that we have 3 years to act decisively and substantially to reduce CO2 emission. And those are the optimists. Those scientists are the optimists. And 3 years is not a long time. So with that in mind, I just wanted the commission and the mayor to think about in every decision you make, in all your deliberations, in all your planning for the future, how can we substantially reduce our emissions? If you think about the kids in our community right now, they're going to live to see all of these things play out. And so imagine these kids that are in our community right now, and imagine the town that you're planning for, and imagine up to 13% reduction in the economy. Climate change is not just going to be uncomfortable and not just hot, but our economy is going to drastically suffer. So I hope that in this small window, as the leaders, in the small window of time we have to act as the elected leaders, that you'll all think about how to reduce emissions, not just a little bit and not just solar panels in one place, but as a community, we need to come together. So I hope, there's many avenues to do that. There's joining the Paris Climate Accords. There's, different, there's different petitions that have been signed in different groups that the mayor could join or that the town could join. There is, actions at the state level that we could encourage and push for. There's actions at the national level. And we need to do all of those in addition to the actions at the local level. So,
Thank you. And I don't normally respond back to people that speak to us at the podium, but I do want you to know that sustainability is very important to us. It's something that we are spending a lot of time and effort working on, so it's not something that's being ignored by this Mayor and Commission. So just want to let you know that.
Okay.
Sir?
An office to do that.
Yes, actually, we have created an Office of Sustainability, that is the function of that office. So, thank you. Okay.
Could I add, Madam Mayor, that office would be providing us with a plan.
Sir?
That office would be providing us with a plan
Yeah, I
to
think
improve to reduce our carbon footprint as a
and I think it's close to being finished. And
Yes.
will be reporting back to us. So now it's time for our reports, and the first one is from the mayor. And one of the things I would like to do publicly is thank Georgia Power. They worked around the clock to get the power restored to 13,000 customers in Athens-Clarke County who lost their power due to storms on Saturday. Our ACC staff who have to clear up the debris and make our streets passable again. In fact, I was coming downtown for the fireworks on Saturday about 7:30, and two of our police officers were out there with chainsaws clearing off the limbs of trees on Hancock Avenue so people could get down that. And also want to thank the police and leisure services and our citizens for making our Independence Day celebration a great success in spite of the storms. So, and I would like to send to our GOC, Government Operations Committee, a review of the Athens-Clarke County owned facilities naming policy, to look at that. To our Legislative Review Committee, a review of the septic tank fees, and to our, who did the cats, GOC or animals?
LRC.
LRC. Okay, so I'm gonna send it back to LRC to look at the policy for chips and neutering of cats. So, and with that, I have one more item for us tonight, and then I'll get to all of y'all. Yesterday, we celebrated our nation's Declaration of Independence from the burdens of an oppressive government that controlled the lives and fortunes of our citizens. We declare that all people are created equal, granting rights by our Creator to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. After much discussion and citizen input, we, the Mayor and Commission, the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County, recognized that we were falling short of this declaration in our community and proceeded to address concerns that were expressed to us by our citizens. On January 5th, 2016, the Mayor and Commission adopted a resolution condemning unlawful discrimination and directed our attorney and manager to bring us recommendations to facilitate the values of that resolution. On November 1st, 2016, the Mayor and Commission adopted revisions to our alcohol license ordinance addressing discriminatory practices, directed our attorney and manager to explore ways to create a more inclusive and welcoming community, and recommend a framework to us to address claims of discrimination and report back to us by June 30th, 2017. Last week, we received a well-researched document from Manager Williams and Attorney Berryman. Their recommended action was that the mayor appoint a temporary ad hoc task force of community members from across Clarke County to work with staff of the Housing and Community Development Department and the manager to create a draft scope for development of a diversity, equality, and inclusion plan for our community. This report has been distributed to our commissioners and is available on the Athens-Clarke County website. The Mayor's Task Force on Inclusion will consist of the following members, with the expectation that their work will be finalized no later than August 1st, 2018. The chair will be Mr. Grady Martin. Other members will be Adele Amir, Robert Finch, Terrace Thomas, Fred Smith, Umberto Mendoza, he's called Beto, Abraham Mosley, Chris Sheets, Scott Shepard, Mocha Johnson, and Michelle Pearson. So that's that's my response to the recommendation of our manager and our attorney. And now I'll have, do you have anything for us, Mr.?
No, ma'am.
I started to call you Mr. Radish. Mr. Williams. Mr. Radish has a long history. Okay, do you have anything for us, Ms. Maddox?
Yes. 2 weeks from tonight, the audit committee will be meeting at 5:30 in room 103.
Okay, great. Mr. Bierman?
Nothing, thanks.
Okay, and we're going to receive input from our commissioners. Now we'll start with Mr. Sims, go clockwise, and end with Mr. Gertz.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to just remind us, that about the renaming of facilities. I hope that we will not let that go because we still have that recommendation. We passed it out to no action to look at a consistent policy. So hopefully we will move on that.
I just assigned that to committee.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Just like you're going to hear it again.
Yep, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to wish everybody a belated happy 4th. And I was very pleased to have power back on after 8 hours of not having power. Thankfully, it was at night, so it wasn't too crazy. I did want to mention and thank Commissioner Bell attended, as well as you, Mayor, the World of Wonder unveiling of the art by Lawrence Stuke. And it's really neat if you guys haven't been out there. It actually, the location originally had been outside the gate, and they had to move it in, which is actually a much better location, especially if you've got kids and you want to sit and enjoy the art. You don't have to rush through the gate to get to your kids. So it was really nice. It was a good turnout, and the little ice cream dude showed up, and that was fun. So, and then the Green Acres Crestwood Parade. Diane also went to that with me, and because of the storm and everything, the mayor didn't make it. And but that was fun, and so.
Well, I live on the opposite side of town, and about 30 minutes before it was supposed to start, I had scary lightning. So
yeah,
but I saw that y'all had a nice
had a
attendance.
reprieve of about an hour or so, hour and a half or so before it started raining a little bit more, but it was really nice. It was a good event. All the kids had fun. So
okay,
that's all.
Mr. Terry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not quite sure how I feel about coming from a country with an oppressive government. Anyway.
Well, that's why you came here, right?
That's one of the reasons. I don't have anything really to say except that obviously we've been having a lot of storms, and our crews, I think, are doing a great job and will continue to do a great job. My understanding is that is going to impact the leaf and limb pickup a little bit, and so I would just request the public, those of you who are still watching, to have a little bit of patience and forbearance on getting leaf and limb picked up on this cycle.
Ms. Bell.
Yes, I did spend more time on the east side on the 4th of July, but it was wonderful. And to see that gyroscope was just so awesome. And I got to meet, of course, the artists, and that was a delight. And to see all those little children. I took my grandchildren to the old world of wonder when they were coming through. And this one is so different, of course, but the one thing is it's got some shade. That other one did not have any shade. Okay, to follow up on Head of Internal, as Auditor Stephanie Maddox, we're inviting the public to come to the meeting that will be in room 103 at 5:30, and we're going to be reviewing the 2018 work plan. And of course, public will not be allowed to have input, but they can listen, and also we would like for any of you commissioners to come for that. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Hamby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I've just got a couple of things for staff, if that's okay. I know we allocated some money during our budget for Keep Athens-Clarke Beautiful. And I was hoping to get early in on this to see if there was some sort of plan that was going to be developed about how they suggest that money be utilized, so that we know ahead of time how they could how they're planning on spending that money along our corridor. So I think that would be real helpful for us to understand that, and not wait till the end of next year and all of a sudden nothing's been planted. So that's the reason I'm hitting you up early for that.
Hopefully you'll get us a report.
Commissioner Wright, I think, is liaison to that group. And the other one is we also allocated $100,000 to our home revitalization program, and I'd like for us to get in on early about how that could be utilized so that we can help some people that we're trying to help and some neighborhoods that we're trying to help. And also, did you? Okay. I also wanted to mention the fireworks the other night. They were well attended. It's amazing how the heavy rains ahead of time and trees falling everywhere, the amount of people that showed up to the fireworks. It's always you never can believe the interest in seeing things blown up that people like. People will attend that, and certainly Leisure Services did a great job with that, and people came to support our independence from the tyranny. Unfortunately, we still have that tyranny on this commission, but that's okay. Maybe one day we can shoot off our fireworks right here. But I did want to mention the sponsors. I think it's very important to note the sponsors that helped pay for this event, because without them, it wouldn't have been as successful as it was, considering the rain. I mean, there was a good crowd out for that. So we had several different levels. The gold level sponsors were, if you'll indulge me just for a minute, Blascane Birch, Gerard and Ashley, and Landmark Properties were gold sponsors. Silver level was Cox Media. Bronze levels, Athens Convention Visitors Bureau, Athens First, BB&T, the Classic Center, De Palmas, Flagpole, Hyatt Place. And the salute level was our own, the Commercial Bank, Creature Comforts, First American Bank and Trust, Frontier, and Jackson Spalding. And the sparkler level is the Globe, Heary's 2, Combs, Fashion, Moss Heary, the Red Zone, and Silver Dollar. And all of these, most of them, are downtown businesses who appreciated this body voting to have the fireworks downtown, and certainly they'll continue to support efforts for good 4th of July fireworks. So, thank you.
Jerry's going to let me speak. I forgot 2 things to say. If any of you as commissioners or the public would like to have any direct input, be sure to get in touch with Stephanie, internal auditor, or myself, so that we can add it into our agenda for our meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Neesmith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, first of all, I've had a number of constituent issues this week, last 2 weeks, and I just want to say thanks, without going into detail, to the Athens-Clarke County Police Department, to Transportation and Public Works and Public Utilities, who made us all look good by responding so quickly and being so kind to the constituents and doing such a great job. I just really appreciate what they're doing. Next thing, I came across a situation when we were looking at another issue that concerns me, and that was, and Bill, you can correct me if I'm misstating anything. When the railroad abandoned its property in the early 80s, that property by law became property of the adjacent landowners. There were no deeds done or quitclaim deeds or anything like that. It just became their property. Many of them are unaware of that, and our tax assessors have not assessed that property for taxes in all this time. And I just wonder out loud, what are we going to do about that? Some of this property is going to become valuable when we start putting in the rails to trails, and we're going to have to buy that land. But we're buying land that many of them don't know they own, and many of them have not paid property taxes on. So it seems like a conundrum that we might want to take a look at.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As others have done, I'd like to give my thanks to the crews that worked to clean up. I think perhaps my district was hit a little hardest. I saw a picture that evening of a cloud coming over Moss side that looked like it could have been a funnel cloud. And there were so many trees and telephone poles down on Oglethorpe Avenue. I wonder if there might have actually been a tornado that wasn't reported. But anyway, it was a mess, and we got through it, and people worked hard, and there's still stuff down everywhere. I've got a lot of stuff in my yard that I think I'm going to send over to Andy's yard, since he said something about leaf and limb in his yard. I'll bring it all over to him, but
As long as you clean my yard up as well, that's fine.
anyway, but I just want to thank those crews. I know it wasn't all ACC crews. Some of it was Georgia Power, and some of it were the other utilities. But there was a lot of work, and it was a very dangerous situation, and we came through it well.
Great. Thanks to many, many people working very hard. That's right.
I don't have anything specifically, but I can let Commissioner Hamby know the next meeting will be at the beginning of August, and I'll make sure that this is processing so that maybe we can get some recommendations and don't miss some grant applications that might need some matching funds. But that crew's pretty good, so I'm sure that they'll.
Something colorful.
We'll pass that along,
And-
Artist Hamby. And
I think daffodils would be beautiful.
Yeah, I was, another item, before all the committees get really full, I was really hoping that we could have a committee assignment to address where scooters and mopeds and other gadgets that people are operating on the sidewalks, and maybe we can outline where they should and shouldn't be, because I don't think a moped should be in the bike lane, and I don't know that anybody can give somebody a ticket for riding that kind of thing. And if that could be something that we can address, I think we can have some enforcement and keep a safe place with the variety of things that can happen on the sidewalk that shouldn't be.
I expect to do that next month. You and I and Bill are going to have a conversation about it.
That'd be great. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I missed the fireworks this weekend. I was out of town at my little sister's wedding. I was in the woods outside of Chattanooga, and we did see some rain, but not the kind of storm that came through here. I've seen pictures, and I came back to my neighborhood, and trees are out everywhere, and it is a holy miracle that no one was killed. A big tree came down right in the backyards of 5 shotgun shacks right around the corner from me, and it just missed those homes by inches. It could have taken out 5 homes. But I did have trees in my yard, one of which took out my carport. As my husband was about to step off the porch to batten it down yesterday. So it's really scary times, and this does tie into the whole issue of climate change, which we had somebody speak on. This is not an unusual occurrence. This is a regular thing now, and it's gonna impact our budget. And I feel like we're making a huge step in starting that sustainability office, and we have 2 of our finest employees heading it up. So I really look forward to their recommendations and to implementing their recommendations. I'm really looking forward to their input and report. And speaking of trees down, I think Allison had told me that there is a program to get street trees replanted, that it goes by district. And I'm wondering if we could get some information on that, as to when our districts are up for those street trees. I know in some of our older in-town neighborhoods, we've got these big, giant water oaks that are literally on their last legs and fallen over, and they're dangerous. So I'm hoping that we can start getting some new street trees planted and maybe find out what the process is for private groups to plant some street trees.
And hopefully not water oaks.
Not water oaks.
They're actually.
No, they're the
most of
worst,
big
and
oaks-
that's
big
part
oaks
of the problem.
You see in Athens are water oaks, but they're actually dangerous. They
Yeah.
look healthy, but they
Right
get
against
hollow
that.
inside.
Yeah, and
That's why they fall.
Athens-Clarke County has a really great list of recommended urban street trees online, and I've tried to share that as much as possible on some neighborhood listservs. Maybe we can come up with a way to make it a little more public and available. But yeah, we're gonna have to start replenishing that canopy soon with the right kind of trees.
So I'm going to go back to
I'm
Ms.
sorry,
Wright just a minute.
I forgot I wanted to compliment the work that the manager and his staff did on the report, and I wanted to thank you for getting a committee together so that the momentum can keep moving in a positive direction. Everything's it's more obvious, and we're getting where we wanted to be, and the time was needed for us to be at a good point for this, and I thank you. And what I wanted to say about the trees was when I got the email about where the trees needed to be done in District 4, I said, well, just pick a bus stop or two. So, and that was all I had to say, and I think there could be a more deliberate feedback, but I just went with trying to get some shade around some bus stops. But and thank you for letting me come back.
Mr. Kurtz, you wind it up
Make
for
a
us.
motion to adjourn for the month.
Okay. And we have a motion to enter into executive session? A motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, folks, we're gonna have, Tom, I'm gonna grab you while their boss is leaving. Before you leave. Does anybody need a break?
We're in executive session.